Okay, everyone, I'm over this side. It's really playing with my mind, Ryan. Can you fix that? Is there any way, Ryan? I feel weird over here. If you can't, it's fine, but
Give it a
it's
go.
fine.
Nah, I can't.
No, not happening. There is a way to do it. John knows how to do it, but anyway, people don't care about this. I'm Hamish. I'm over here. Ryan's over to the left of your screen. We're back. It's Thursday morning briefing from the Celtic Way as we enter the close season. We're in the close season. Ryan, how's things?
Things are good. Yeah. I feel like I've not been on this for a wee while. It was the last time I was on one of these briefings or shows was after the cup final, the Scottish Cup final. So yeah, I think I've just been enjoying the break. To be honest with you, I'm kind of relieved it's the end of the season. You know, despite how successful a season it has been, and it has been a successful season apart from the way it ended. I'm enjoying the break just now, enjoying the recharge, and then I think we'll all get refreshed ahead of the new season, which will, despite being quite a bit away, it always comes by really, really quickly, and the time does fly in. And I think it always also does fly in whenever you hear about pre-season plans. And it seems as if Celtic are going to have a busy pre-season. So, yeah, happy with the break, but at the same time, anticipating the new season as well.
Yeah, there's a few pre-season things we can touch on today. We did mention it yesterday, but fair to say some more information has come out since then. Just first of all, big thanks to Seneca Medical Group for sponsoring this video. They're with us until the end of next season. We'll call it next season, season 25-26. They are the number one hair transplantation clinic in the UK. They have clinics in Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Aberdeen. So great people. Appreciate them sponsoring us. We also have the Martin O'Neill stuff going at the moment, Ryan, and people will know they can get involved with the website. 6 months of access for £1. Plus, they could win the chance, or they will have the chance to have lunch with Martin O'Neill, potentially.
Yeah, a really, really amazing prize that you could win just simply by being a subscriber. And just a reminder that all existing subscribers are all automatically entered into this draw to win. So whether you've been a subscriber for a couple of years or a couple of days, you still get the same chance of winning the competition. So good luck to everybody that's involved in the next couple of days with that.
Yes, morning everyone. Ryan's on comments today, so if you say anything particularly interesting, he might just flash it up on screen. But I know you're all there. Lovely to have you with us on Thursday. We start with the Brendan Rodgers stuff. Ryan, he's provided a bit of an update on his Celtic future. So this is, just to give everyone a bit of context, this is with Sky Sports for a show that's going out on Sky Sports tomorrow night with Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor looking back on the season. Is that the case?
Yes, I believe it's one of those sort of reflective shows that's probably been worked on throughout the season about Celtic's 24-25 season, which has been a successful one. As I said at the start of this programme, yeah, I think there's exclusive interviews with Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor about what transpired this season, the good and the bad. But yeah, looking forward to watching that. Always an interesting listen with Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor speaking. It'll be interesting to see when it was actually recorded, if it's one of those post-cup final ones or pre. I think you'll be able to tell with the mood of the two, because in particular...
Have to be post, surely. Unless the show is the show might well just be on our Premiership triumph, because those are the only games that Sky has the access to and the rights to. So it's a fair chance, I think it's actually, rather than our double, it'll be more on the Premiership title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is, it'll probably be a better watch if it's just the Premiership rather than the Scottish Cup as well. But yeah, I'll definitely be tuning into that and seeing if there's anything said by Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor. It's this weird time of the season now where you're hearing nothing whatsoever from the club. I was looking at their YouTube page, and before they posted that 7-minute video yesterday, there was nothing for like 2-3 days. So there's that silence, which is expected because it's the end of the season. And the fact I don't think they wanted to post too much after the final because they'd probably get a negative response from people in the comments section. But yeah, they broke that silence yesterday evening with that 7-minute video. I don't know if you've had the chance to watch it. It was pretty good.
You're never going to beat the one they did for the Invincible season. I go back maybe every 6 months or so that I'll come across that. It'll be recommended to me on YouTube and I'll just watch it because it's so well put together and just obviously a pretty favourable account, but amazing. I'll catch this one, I'm sure, when we're done here. So the comments from the manager speaking to Sky Sports saying, I'm sure at some point I'll sit with Dermot and the board, we'll have a chat around the future. But we haven't touched on that yet. The focus has been purely on being successful this season. We'll arrive into the summer with real positivity and a real positive energy. I think that's what's important. So very much focused up to this point on what's been happening. We know Brendan Rodgers is going to be in charge for next season. That's not up for any sort of debate. But it's beyond that. I reckon he's going to probably end up signing like a 1-year rolling contract, something like that. The question would be, when do the club sort that, and when do they announce it?
Yeah, and you would hope, just for the club's sake, for Brendan Rodgers' sake, and maybe even for the supporters' sake as well, that that's as soon as possible, so that everybody knows the position that each party stands on this topic. Because I think the worst thing that could happen was this rolls on throughout the season, and there's a question mark, particularly in the second half of the season, if Celtic are going for titles or going for cups, they're trying to make inroads in Europe to try and progress. If they don't have that security, that knowing that the manager is going to be there next season, I know there's always a case for a team coming in the summer or midway through the season. We've seen it even last time with Brendan Rodgers and Leicester, the way that he left. These contracts, they're easily bought out, especially by the big teams down south. But I think there needs to be that security and that understanding of where every party is with regard to Brendan Rodgers. For me, I completely agree with you. I think that Brendan Rodgers will sign a new deal. I could see it being a rolling contract. I think that would make sense for both parties. But it remains to be seen. I think this summer is a big indicator on, and as much as I don't like to say that, the fact that, is Brendan Rodgers going to be backed? And then if he isn't, is he going to look for somewhere else? I think the club needs to be backed anyway, whether it's going to be a new manager or the same manager. So regardless of who's in the hot seat, I think that Celtic need to be spending this summer, because that's just the right thing to do, rather than to appease a manager or help a manager in his plans for the new season.
Yeah, I guess when Brendan Rodgers is trying to sell the club to potential new signings, and virtually all of the signings we make are kind of long-term things. We very rarely do the stopgap thing. I guess it's quite important to him, if he's talking about developing players. It's important for players to know that he's going to be there for longer than a season. So I'm not particularly. I've said this before, I'm not particularly concerned either way. I mean, I really like Brendan Rodgers. I think there's always a debate. Tony calls him an elite level manager. A lot of people agree with that. A lot of people disagree with it. After results like Saturday, you see a lot of people using that phrase, as a slight on Brendan Rodgers, saying no chance is he an elite level manager. I think he's a really good manager. I think most people would agree with that. He's been great for Celtic. So I'd love to see him continue beyond the end of next season. I think he will. But equally, if that isn't to happen and Celtic at the end of next season go in a different direction, I think that could be really good for the club as well. So I'm fairly relaxed about all this. I don't know if everyone else watching feels similarly, or if people are getting quite concerned that his contract's ticking down.
I think what would encourage me is looking back to 2023 and the managers that were linked with the post following Ange Postecoglou's departure to Spurs. Now, there was a number of names linked with that job, Brendan Rodgers being the most obvious and high-profile one, given his past with the club. But if you look back, Areola, that's at Bournemouth just now, apparently he was keen on the job before he got the Bournemouth job. That's from rumours and reports around about that time. You had Farioli that was linked with the job, who was at Nice, who then went to Ajax, who were unfortunate not to win the Eredivisie. More on Ajax later on in this podcast, you would say. Enzo Maresca, who just won the Europa Conference League with Chelsea last night. He did a good job at Leicester. That was before he got the job at Leicester. It was Brendan Rodgers that got his job at Celtic, and then Enzo Maresca took Rodgers' old job. So on that front, I'm pretty confident, and I trust in Celtic to find a good manager if that situation was to arise, because their shortlist would suggest that they're looking in the right places for managers, for up-and-coming managers. I just think at that point, with Ange Postecoglou leaving, with Rodgers maybe potentially playing a similar style to Ange Postecoglou, I know he's made a couple of tweaks, but that forward football, it was the right choice at that point. As much as I want Rodgers to stay, I think if he was to go at some point, I would trust the club to bring in a capable manager. I don't think they would go down the route of appointing like Neil Lennon again. I think they'd be looking in different areas than what they were. I say that. I'm saying that with confidence, but there's always that lingering doubt in your head: are they going to go back third time the charm?
Yeah, I mean Eddie Howe as well. I guess the first
absolutely
before that, with Ange Postecoglou, and he's proven himself to be an amazing manager. Had we appointed Eddie Howe instead of Ange Postecoglou, okay, we wouldn't have had all the Ange stuff. But do we think Celtic would have been in a much worse position? Probably not. Like it's, I think that's why I feel pretty relaxed as long as they do their stuff properly. Listen, Brendan Rodgers is here for next season. He's here for the year after. He might even be here for 10 in a row. We'll wait and see. But feeling good about it. The only thing I think it's important that the squad is kept moving and is kept fresh and vibrant from summer to summer. We did see first time round at the club, and we've also seen it at other clubs Brendan Rodgers has been at, that there is a tendency maybe after a fast start for things to go a little bit stale potentially. And some people may look at the way we finished that season, second half of the season, and some cynics may say, is that starting to happen? I don't think that's the case. I think it's more of a case of Celtic being so far ahead in the league. And also I think the January transfer window, looking back, probably harmed us a bit. Selling Kyogo, not replacing him, what kind of message did that send out, etc. So I think if the club can really recruit well and match Brendan Rodgers' ambition, I do still feel really good about next year. Beyond that, as I say, so much can change, so we're not sure. But the update, Brendan Rodgers says that he's going to chat to Dermot Desmond, and we'll see what happens there. What was the other comments he spoke a bit about transfers?
Yeah, so he said, and this was the second part of the clip, he said, having now come through the first spell to the second spell, I now know 100% you'll lose some of your best players, but they'll always be replaced, like the manager can be replaced. Celtic's in a great moment as a football club, both on and off the pitch, and it's my job to drive that forward. So I think he's open to the idea that maybe maybe one or two of Celtic's big hitters, so-called big hitters, could leave the club in search of a new challenge this summer. I'd maybe look towards Hatate, potentially Cameron Carter-Vickers as those sort of main candidates. Well, I was looking, and you look back to Cameron. I'm not selling him. For a start, he's one of the best Celtic defenders I've seen in my life, to be honest with you, in terms of when he's available, when he's fit and ready. There's nobody really better than him, certainly not in Scotland. I think he rivals Van Dijk in terms of that quality that Celtic have had. Dyre in there as well, I would say. But he's 27, coming up in 28 years old now. He's in the prime of his career. He looks as if he's back fit and ready to play a lot of games. He'll have that month off. He signed up for the next few years. There was that signing that he made, was it last season or the season before? It was like a 5.5 year contract extension. So Celtic are covered in that regard. It would have to take a big transfer fee to lure him away from Celtic Park. But you just look at the amount of time that he spent at the club. Will he be looking for a new challenge in the summer? I would hope not, but you never know. Things can happen in the summer transfer window.
I think CCV's here for a number of years. I think we're probably his main career club now. Because you look at previously where he'd been, and he hadn't necessarily ever properly found a home. And I think he's the kind of guy who appreciates that. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who'll be wanting to leave the club. But yeah, someone else. I mean, Rail Hatate, as you say, Nicholas Kuhn potentially could be guys that there may be interest in. Certainly there's a bit of chat about Nicholas Kuhn and whether people would actually be massively bothered if he left. Again, as is always the case with these Celtic-related things, a lot of people, feeling Kuhn's been harshly treated. Yeah, I think he had a really good start to the season. I thought Kuhn was really disappointing on Saturday in the cup final and had been in a number of games in the second half of the season. So I think that's something we need to watch in the new season. This show, so it's called Celtic, Another Season in Paradise, featuring Brendan Rodgers, Callum McGregor, is on 7 p.m. Friday night on Sky Sports Football. So people can check that out. Okay, moving on. I see you were chatting or you were writing about the pre-season plans because there's been some various reports yesterday about where and who Celtic are going to play, and it's a decent standard of opposition, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll just do a wee run through on it. I've got the article to hand right now. So Brendan Rodgers' side are expected back in training from Tuesday, July the 1st. That gives them over a month. Even those that are away on internationals, they'll get the best part of a month to rest off the back of the 24-25 season ahead of the 25-26 season. After a week's worth of training at Lennoxtown, they'll then travel to the Republic of Ireland to face Cork. And the stadium, I'm not even going to try and butcher that Irish name. Oh, just straight off the tongue, Hamish. I believe it's commonly known as the Park in Ireland to English speakers as well. Read that on the Wikipedia page yesterday. The next day after that game, on July the 9th, Celtic will then head to Portugal for an 8-day warm weather pre-season camp, where they'll also play Sporting Club in Faro. They've been to Faro before. I think they've played a couple of closed-door games in that training ground before. It seems to be a popular one of both Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers, so they're heading back to that. Then after that, they'll head back to Celtic Park to play Newcastle United, the Carabao Cup holders, and after that, there's not the league title isn't defended until August the 2nd, so Celtic have managed to plug that gap. They've accepted a friendly tournament invitation from Como to face both Como and Ajax in a tournament over in Italy on July the 24th and the 26th. So that mini 2-week gap between the Newcastle game and the start of the Scottish Premiership season has been filled with two really good games against two good sides in Como and Ajax, respectively. And then about 3 weeks after that is the 3 weeks after that is the Champions League playoff round.
So 5 pre-season games as it stands. Only 2 of them have been confirmed. Only the Cork City and Newcastle games officially announced. But we're talking Cork City, Sporting Lisbon, Newcastle United, and then Como and Ajax. They think that's part of a tournament in Como's own stadium. So we're not quite sure. I mean, I don't know if there'll be a 4th team in that, and it'll be like a semi-final, final thing, or if it'll be 3 teams. But you would certainly think, I think they're talking, I think it's a Thursday and Saturday are the 2 games. So you're kind of thinking you'll see 2 totally different Celtic teams for each of those, but decent calibre of opposition. I mean, Newcastle will be a test, Sporting Lisbon will be a test, Ajax, Como, good side. Alex Valle was on loan at Como last season, but not sure if he'll be back with them for the new season.
I think it's only a matter of time before he signs for Como, to be honest. Fabrizio Romano has been quite open about the fact that a fee has been agreed between the two sides. I think a fee was agreed before he went on loan with that option to buy, but it seems as if both clubs are happy with that and they want that to continue. So it looks as if Bailly is going to play for Como next season. A really good first season back in Serie A for Como. Cesc Fabregas is the manager of Como, and he was linked with the Bayer Leverkusen job a couple of weeks ago, which just went to Erik ten Hag. But really an up-and-coming coach, really, really good player. Everybody remembers how good Cesc Fabregas was as a player. I believe he scored at Celtic Park as well.
He did.
I think that was the infamous Neymar game, Scott Brown Neymar game. I remember, I think it was Barcelona had that black and gold kit on that night. Bad memories of that one. But
people forget about that game, Ryan, and sorry to go way off topic, but the game was 0-0, I think, with 10 minutes to go. And we had 2 amazing chances to take the lead. Absolutely. I think it's James Forrest has a shot that's tipped over the bar. And then Charlie Mulgrew, there's a chance from a corner where he has to score. And it's like, people talk about that 2-1 win we had over Barca. But a year later, we were very close to like doing it again. And obviously we end up losing the game a couple of minutes later.
Yeah. Was it a Fabregas header, I believe?
Yes, it was a great header as well.
Yeah.
Great header.
what is it with Celtic and conceding good Champions League headers? Cavani instantly comes to mind as well with that. But yeah, they did run them close, and I remember Celtic being really, really competitive in that game. But he was a good player, clearly a good manager as well, and doing a good job at Como as well. A couple of real household names in that Como side, maybe coming towards the end of their career. I know Pepe Reina just retired the other day, but yeah, a team
Dele
that are
Alli
definitely
there?
on the up. Yeah, Dele Alli's there as well. He's been struggling for game time though at Como. There's a couple of other ones Alex Bailly people know about, but clearly a team that are ambitious and on the up, and a nice part of the world for players to go to.
Fabregas was a good player, not quite Luka Modric levels, Ryan? But yeah, that's all we'll say on that. Dyre Maeda, is he been chatting? I've actually not seen this, but the headline I'm seeing is that he's provided a bit of an update on his future.
Basically just says he's happy at the club. I think he's kept his cards close to his chest. He has made a couple of rumblings over the past few months about, let's see what the future holds, etc. But I think he realises how good he's got at Celtic at the moment, and he probably sees what's happening to both his former teammate and his international teammate Kyogo. I think that's a separate point to talk about. It seems as if Kyogo will be frozen out by Habib Bey's Rennes squad in pre-season, so he might not even be able to take part in group training when he comes back for pre-season in the summer in France. So it looks as if a move elsewhere will be required for him. I know a couple of days ago that Bournemouth were linked with his services. Could see him actually playing for Bournemouth. They play with Evan Nielsen up front, Semenyo in the wings, as well as Justin Kluivert. But I could see Kyogo playing for Bournemouth. I think that would be a good move for him. I don't really, as much as people will instantly say, do a Jota, bring Kyogo back, I just don't think it suits Celtic at all. I don't think it suits Brendan Rodgers' style of play. I think he'll probably want a younger striker to come in that's more in the mould of what he wants from a striker. I always think that Kyogo had to adapt and try and change his game in order to help Brendan Rodgers' style of play. But yeah, I think that time has passed. With Jota, it made sense because he was 25, but Kyogo's 5-6 years older than him, so I think both parties are quite happy separated, to be honest.
Yeah, but on Dyson, I mean, hopefully Dyson sticks around. That's understatement of the century. Hopefully Dyson sticks around for next season and can really offer us something. Seems like he's going to be viewed as a left winger. I guess as fans, we probably get a bit obsessed about, how we're going to view these players so we can get our nice wee neat squad depth chart and all that stuff. But it does seem like Brendan Rodgers, wants to sign a striker. He certainly, I mean, if Dyson is going to be viewed as a left winger, we're going to have to sign a striker. I mean, I was looking at the squad the other day, and I think it's a decent enough squad with a lot of good players. And I don't know if it's just the cup final playing in my mind or whatever, but God, I was looking at that squad, and I think there's potentially 5 first team players ideally that you'd want signed. I think you'd want a centre back signed. You'd want a centre mid signed, a left winger, forward, and obviously we need a left back as well. I guess that would be someone who could play alongside Kieran Tierney and split the games up. Potentially 2 midfielders as well. It's going to have to be a busy summer. And I think it's, as I say, it's a good squad we've got. We've got a lot of players there, but a couple of injuries like we've seen recently, Jota, Hatate, and you really lack a bit of creativity for me. That midfield is a bit of a concern. I think they talk about things going stale. I think that midfield went pretty stale at the end of the season. I'm not sure quite why that is. But I think we need a bit of creativity in there at the start of the season, especially if Rio Hatate moves on.
Yeah, up until the Aberdeen game where he got his injury, Hatate was Celtic's best player for 3-4 games in a row, real man of the match performances. And there was a worry when he went down injured and when the subsequent ruling out of the cup final. Where is that creativity going to come from in the middle of the park? The onus was then pushed on Paulo Bernardo, Cal McGregor to an extent, and Arne Engels. Now, it could have been completely different in the Scottish Cup final if Arne Engels had scored that goal a couple of minutes before he came off the park. he hit the post. I just look back in that Scottish Cup final, and I don't want to talk about it too much, but those subs, making those 3 subs, when I feel like at least 2 of those players were coming into the game a little bit, and Maeda and Arne Engels, they completely lost their not their mojo, but any momentum that they got was discarded because they came off the park. I understand why 3 subs were brought on to go on and win the game, get that second goal, but it just didn't have the desired effect whatsoever. I feel like the midfield is very samey if you bring in Bernardo and Engels. I think 2 of them do very similar tasks in the team. Not a lot of creativity goes through them. Engels will get assists from set pieces, a couple of passes here and there as well, and maybe a goal from outside the box as well as penalties. But in terms of that creativity, when you take Hatate and Jota, but I think especially Hatate away from the middle of the park, you miss that risk taker, that midfielder that's going to take chances, that's going to play those cutting passes that break the lines. I think that was one of the problems on Saturday, because Aberdeen were quite happy to just sit back because they knew that a cutting pass from the likes of Hatate, who has caused them absolute nightmares in the past 2-3 years. Look at all his best performances. A lot of them will be against Aberdeen, and especially against Graham Shinnie, I remember in particular. So the fact that he was injured, I think, was a real leveller in that game, and Celtic struggled in the midfield because of it.
Yeah, I just think Hatate, the thing about Hatate is he's always involved, and that's what can be frustrating about him when he's not having a good game. He doesn't really hide. He gets on the ball and he tries things. And yeah, I think when he's missing, it's very obvious that we lack creativity. I mean, just look at the 2 games when he was missing at the end of the season. St Mirren game, which we kind of wrote off, I guess, because it was trophy day. But, really, really poor. Didn't create much in that game. And then the cup final really struggled to create much in that game as well. So, yeah, I mean, people talk about Lennon Miller, and I'm in favour of signing Lennon Miller. I've not seen enough of him to say whether he could be a creator. I know he's had some assists and goals at Motherwell, quite impressive. I don't know. I'm not quite sure if he is that type of player. That's a good point. I mean, O'Reilly was. You think of the level Matt O'Reilly was playing at the start of the season before he left the club, and we don't have anything like that at the moment, and we hope that Engels can grow into being that player. All right, he's slightly different, but we hope he can reach that kind of level. But yeah, we need something new. That midfield, to be honest, that midfield's quite concerning to me.
Yeah, creativity wise, good players individually, but the creativity is lacking. One thing I would say in favour of Engels, and you can make the example about Matt O'Reilly, is his numbers in his first season, first half season, and then his full season. The numbers weren't all that great, especially in Ange Postecoglou's second season. I think it took until February, March time for him to score.
Yeah, it was
in the league.
It was mid-March. He scored his first goal. It was a cup tie against St Mirren.
So that already goes in at Engels' favour if he's making things happen from midfield in terms of getting goals and assists. I'm a big fan of Engels. I know there's been quite a bit of support on social media recently about the player from people. I think a full pre-season, because you've got to remember he was brought in on deadline day, and it's easier for players like Luke McCown, despite the fact he came from Dundee to Celtic. He was playing Premiership football. He played in the League Cup group stages. He was used to Scottish football. For Engels, it's completely different. He was used to playing 1 game a week. So having that pre-season, going away with the squad, I think you'll see the making of him, but I think he needs to be supported in that midfield by somebody else, another creative option. Is Lennon Miller that player? I don't know if he's got that creative edge just yet. I'd be looking for a player that can get double digits in goals and assists and make things happen in the middle of the park.
Well, I'm sure that chat will ramp up again pretty soon. The window, I've seen the date 12th of June written down, so we're a couple of weeks away from the window opening. But there's obviously plenty of transfer chat going on. Okay, Ryan, we'll leave it there for now. Far more on the website. You can read that Brendan Rodgers story, the pre-season plans. There's also stuff on Greg Taylor. There's analysis on the final on Saturday, and plenty more going up as well from the squad. And in terms of the YouTube channel, I will return tomorrow for the final morning briefing of the week. So we'll catch you soon, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.